Chels.
Hello.
Welcome to the Open Up podcast.
Thank you.
Are you nervous?
I don't know, I wasn't. And then we just sat down and I'm like, okay, we're going.
Yeah,
No.
like it's real now. We're recorded. Everything you say from this point on is out there for the world.
Don't swear.
You can actually.
Okay, good.
Just one day I did say that to somebody though. So like maybe just not like profusely, but we are all about you being authentic.
Yeah.
So just be you.
I'll just try not to.
I am really intrigued for this conversation. There is so much about you that I admire.
Oh.
I really do. And I think that there's going to be a lot of wisdom. I'm not putting pressure, by the way, but there's going to be a lot of wisdom and I think lessons and experience that you're going to share with us today, because you've got such a beautiful, varied in terms of like background and your work and your career.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's going to be beautiful to share that. So now people might know you within the fitness industry.
Yeah.
But before that, you spent about 10 years as a professional dancer.
Yeah.
Recently, also went on tour with Chicago.
Yeah. Again, put my dancing shoes back on.
I was really living through you for the outfits.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good outfit. That was the dream. That was the dream.
What was it like being a professional dancer and dancing at that level with some pretty renowned brands and companies and people? Give us a bit of a snapshot of that experience.
So I think that performing in general or being a dancer, it's like choosing to live on a roller coaster. Like you have your highs and you have your lows. And it was always like, that was my dream. Like from when I was younger, that's, I went to dancing after school, and then you go to dance college and everybody there wants to be a performer, and that's the goal. So then when you actually start working, it's amazing. And some people aren't lucky enough to work in the industry. So it's amazing. You are literally like in work. It's the best feeling. You're living the dream. You're with people that you love. You're having such a laugh. And then when it ends, you're like, okay, back to square one again. Got to try and find another job. But you've got to hustle, and you've got to be clever about it as well, because you are your own business as such, because every time you do a job, that it's got an end date,
I think as well, there's so many things I want to pull out of that, because I say recently I have a business, right? But before that I was employed.
Yeah.
And I'm around a lot of creative people, which I love.
Yeah.
I think I'm just attracted to you guys for a reason, right? I'm in awe of you guys, but I'm surrounded by creative people.
Yeah.
So when you describe like the peaks and troughs and being ready for something to end.
Yeah.
Because you went into dance from going to dance college.
Yeah.
First of all, what do you think allowed you or set you apart from other people where you were able to work in the industry? Because so many people aren't.
Yeah. I was never like the best dancer in the room, but I think that I was clever in a way where I was like, okay, I'm 5'8", I'm okay at singing, I'm okay at acting, these are my things, and I can sort of like blag certain things, the best blagger. But in between doing shows, because that's what I always wanted to do. In between that, you still are auditioning for shows, but I still wanted to work as a dancer and do corporate jobs, or like, events where they have dancers, or fashion shows where there were dancers. And I was always like, well, I'm 5'8", so I know other girls that are dancers that do bridal shows. So I was like, I would do things like that in between too, because I was like, I want all my money to come from performing or meeting other people, and not just, working in a restaurant afterwards. And I'm not saying that, some people have to do that, but I was just like, be clever, get good pictures, have like, make as many friends, and be a nice person when you're at work. All of those things can really help.
So I think this is so important for so many reasons. And I guess the reason I love doing this podcast is because every guest that I get to like interview and delve into their experiences, everyone's got their own way of doing things.
Yeah.
And I hope that everybody listening gets to take whatever resonates, right? But this morning I actually stopped off at my beautiful place, my beautiful coffee shop, my Zen place where I'm like super creative. And the guy who knows me, because I'm in there way too many times now, they take all my money.
Yeah, when you add it up at your tax return.
Yeah, I was like, okay. Note to self. But he is also in like performing arts, and he's actually plays in a band. And we were talking today, and I was just asking him how he is.
Yeah.
And he was opening up, not intended, but he was sharing how he's kind of at that point where he wants to stop working at a restaurant.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm kind of over it, Amira. And he said, essentially what you said. He said, I want to be around those people. I want to be in the environment. And he said, we already play. I'm already part of a band. Like, it's very much my life. He said, this is not my life. This is what I do.
Yeah.
And listening to you share this as well, there are loads of different ways. But what I love about the way you did it, and I guess it's kind of resonated with me when I first started, is there's no right way. But sometimes being savvy and thinking about what works for you is important.
Yeah.
And I think when you say as well, being surrounded by the people in the industry, whatever industry it is energetically as well incredible, right?
Yeah,
because
massively.
you end up living and breathing it.
Yeah, massively. And like when you're in that sort of circle, when you do one job, and I really, really believe that if you are a person that works hard, is like easy, when I say easy, it doesn't mean just doing every single thing that's told, but nice to work with, turns up on time, is professional, is like in a good mood, then you don't know, like all of those people when I first started were dancers with me, and now they're choreographers, and now they're people that book other people on work. So you know what I mean? All of those people turn into, even if you're with a fellow dancer, that person might book you on another job or recommend you. So don't be a dick.
That is today's message.
Yeah, that's the message.
But you're right as well, because I think sometimes especially as well, we're going to get to this, right? Because you've definitely pivoted and you're in a completely different career now, which I'm also in awe of. So we're going to get into that. But it's all about like building those relationships in a very organic way.
Yeah.
And I remember like a few years ago, this must have actually been like a long time ago, when I was still in corporate, and I'd gone to some sort of like training day. And this guy who's an expert, I can't actually remember his name, but he'd got up and he was sharing about networking and what helps you network. And lots of people in the room were sharing why they don't like it. It's awkward to create these types of conversations. But I think what you're saying as well is that when you're naturally around whatever industry it is, whatever area of expertise you want to be in, then naturally those conversations flow. And it's not always about you having to do something, but somebody connects with you and they remember you because either you're on the same vibe, you have a common interest, or you get to know each other on a bit of a deeper level.
Yeah, with dancing, it's definitely, we would never call it networking, because we just like, your networking is like getting drunk at the pub afterwards, like, because you just like, everyone is, even though people have this like perceived sort of expectation that dancers is really bitchy, and it's really like, it's honestly like such a nice community of people, and everyone is just trying to get a job and trying to hustle and have a nice time. Like, the money's not that great, you're doing it because you love it, and you just want to have a nice time. So like having a lot, everyone just wants to enjoy it. So I think that's your way of connecting by, and also sometimes you'll do a job and you're literally with dancers, they make you share rooms. You've just met someone and you're like, hi, like you wake up in the bed next to them. But like, but you just have to connect and get along, and that's your way. Do you know what I mean? We would never think of it as, well, I never thought of it as networking ever. So I suppose there's some people that you can tell maybe are a bit like that, but I don't know, I just wanted to have a laugh.
Yeah, but I love it as well because it sounds like it came from like a really organic space. And I think especially when I was starting out for me and running the business, and like that first 6 months, probably even a year financially, was like tough. And in my ideal world, I would have planned for it, lots of lessons learned. Yes, could have done it a million different ways and it happened how it's supposed to. But the financial pressure was like soul crushing at times. And I remember getting to certain points and debating, do I want to go and waitress? It reminded me being an 18-year-old, because I'd waitressed for so long, right? And I was like, do I want to just go and do it? One, as something completely different, and two, to essentially help me out financially.
Yeah.
And I decided against it.
Yeah.
And it's really similar to the reason in terms of when you were transitioning and what you think really helped you kind of propel you, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was a similar thing. And I was like, right, who do I want to be like my potential clients? Who do I potentially want to work with?
Yeah.
And I literally went and surrounded myself in those circles, and nobody knew who I was. And that makes it sound like someone knows who I am now. But I just mean that
I know who you are. You're a big deal.
Thank you. I needed that. My ego needed that.
We know.
But it is so incredibly important.
Yeah.
Now, there's something else that you said that I really want to hear how you navigate. So part of being in performing arts and that kind of world, you know that you're on a job for a certain amount of time, and that contract at some point is coming to an end.
Yeah.
Now, as the previous version of me that was employed for a very, very long time, probably like 15 years of my life, that would have sent me into a state of shock. How did you get good at navigating that?
God, I just think it's just part of, you know, what you've decided to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sort of like, it's just what you sign up for. That's what I think anyway. So, and also sometimes you don't even know it's coming. Like when I was doing Chicago in the West End, and Cuba Gooding Jr. was like our lead. He was playing Billy Flynn, and we were like, I just bought my house, and I was like, great, sorted for a couple of years. You know, it'll be in town for a while, and then we were all on a night out, and then we're getting got some messages on our phone, and people were like, babe, so sorry. And we were like, what? And then they were like, oh, you're closing. And we found out on someone had shared it on Twitter that the show was closing. And we were like, what? And we were all wasted, and just spending our money. I just
like, we've got this for a couple of years.
Fine. And then we were like, oh my God. And we found out like that because someone had found out behind the scenes and then put it on Twitter, and we were like, okay. And then instantly you could see that everyone was like, oh shit, it's like, what are we going to do next? But instantly your brain then goes, okay, tomorrow I'll speak to my agent, and then they'll be on it and see what's coming up next. And then it's just always looking for that next thing. Always.
I think as well, that's why I probably partly am really drawn to creative people. And I think that there's a difference. People can disagree with me, right? But I really think there's a difference between if you've started out in that world, and I'm not saying you have to be a dancer, but in any sort of creative or employed environment, right?
Yeah.
Because I do think your mindset is different. And I'm coming from a space where I didn't, right? So I'm not saying that you can't transition. You totally can. But in my world, for example, no one sets you up for that.
Yeah.
So you better learn how to do it, and you better learn how to do it fast, right?
Yeah.
But when you say, and you're like, Amira, that's what I signed up for, right?
Yeah.
And I guess I don't like bringing age into it because I honestly think age has nothing to do with it. But from that transition of studying to working, that was your environment. That's what you were used to.
Yeah, you just get used to it. It's whatever you're used to. Yeah.
Right.
But then at the same time, it's interesting because some people, you know, we trained at dance college, and you train, and then some people, when you learn how to dance, etc., they say what it's going to be like, but then when you get out into the industry, so many people are like, this isn't for me. You know, they wanted more security. So I do think it's not for everybody, and there's some really, really talented people that were amazing at college that sort of then was like, no, they went off and did their own thing, which is amazing, but it's not for everyone. Just being self-employed, I think.
And I love that you shared that as well, and even just insight from other dancers that you've trained with as well, because I guess something I talk about a lot with my clients or community is your values, right? So when you talk about security, and I guess I'm just kind of sharing it so that anyone listening is going to probe themselves. And there's a lot of DMs at the moment that I'm getting around whether it's next steps, whether it's career move, but Amira, I don't want to let go of the security. And it's actually defining what does security mean to you as well, and that there isn't a right way. There's a right way for you. And I mean, it also comes down to your stories and your narratives that you tell yourself, because for my whole entire life I said to myself, I'm not creative and I'm not an entrepreneur. Well, of course I was never going to be that, because that's what I was telling myself. And it's funny because the other day I was having a conversation with one of my amazing freelancers who's super creative, and he said to me, Amira, I didn't realize you're this creative. And I was like, no, this is where I thrive. And he was like, oh my God, I didn't know this. And I said, yeah, I absolutely love it. So it is that mindset shift. And it's also when you talk about it not being right for everybody. So I think whatever career you're in or whatever that thing is that you love and you adore is, does it align for you with your values?
Yeah.
And I'm going to just throw that out there because I know not everyone knows their values. So if you don't, this is your hint. Please go and do the work to find it out.
What's my values? I don't know what they are. I'm just saying it.
I'm going to leave a link to, because I've done a masterclass on it. So I'm going to leave that in the show notes. Get like a mirror, sign me up.
I'm going to click on that.
Do you know what it is as well? And the reason, while we're on this topic, I'm going to explain this now. And I came from a space where I loved my corporate life, right? And there's things that were amazing about it, but overall, if I'm going to describe it as an experience, it was phenomenal, incredible. I think it's given me the most amazing foundation to do what I do now, right?
Yeah.
But throughout that journey, I also lost my authenticity.
Yeah.
And so like the reason I bang on, my client's going to be so fed up on me, right? The reason I bang on about values is because when you get to a crossroads and you don't know, right, well, what's a good decision for me? Not what my parents think, not what society is expecting of me, what's good for me. It's really difficult to make a decision that feels good for you if you don't know what your values are. So I always describe them as your compass. And it's not a tick box exercise. It's not like, right, let me look through these 100 values that I've got on a piece of paper and let me tick the ones that I think they're in you already. And it's why I guess like I really coach it out, because it's just about you finding the thing that's really important to you. And I guess because I went through that stage, while corporate world for me was amazing, I wasn't being me and I wasn't being true to me, and I had to mask a lot of it, or I felt I had to mask a lot of it, and that was quite tough. So just listening to you as well, and just giving permission to say, for you, it sounded like dance aligned with you and you thrived and you loved the people side of it, and that you were resilient enough to deal with like the ups and the downs. Like listening to you being in a pub wasted, hearing that you're not continuing, not even in the right way, in my opinion, or in the most helpful way.
The worst way ever,
And you've got a mortgage.
Yeah, we just bought the house and I was like,
okay.
Yeah, but that's it. You were just so, and people have this perceived, again, like they think dancers are stupid, and they think that, but honestly they work so hard, they're physically, mentally, like for even to get a job, like you're lucky to get in the room and get an audition, and then when you get in the room, you're not getting paid to be in the room. You're actually like pulling off your side hustle and losing out on money, and has pissed somebody else off because you've had to cancel last minute because the auditions come in, or you've like had to not go on change your holiday plans, whatever. They send you all this material to learn. You then go and pay and have a singing lesson to learn it with the money you don't have, and then because you just got so much hope that you're going to get that job, and then you do the audition, they might call you back like 5 times, you'll do 5 rounds like on different days, go in, sweat all day, go through that, and then you're just waiting to hear, and they don't tell you if it's a no. They don't tell you haven't got it. So you're just waiting. And then every time your phone, if I think back on it, it makes me laugh. But you're like waiting for your phone. Every time your phone rings, you're like, oh, damn it. And then like you might get a message from like a friend. Say if you had a friend in the final as well that's waiting to hear. And they're like, babe, have you heard? And then you're like, your heart starts going, and they're like, oh yeah, I've had an offer. And then you're like, maybe it's going to come today. I'm not sure. And then you just don't hear. And you're like, oh, I guess I didn't get it then. It's just that. And then the only thing I can think of that's like similar to it is like a bit of heartbreak, because you do get your hopes up, not only because you want to be in that show and that's been like a dream, but you've done all that work to be in it. You've got a good vibe from the panel that you're like, they've said something really nice. And then that's going to be your money for the next year, and then you get your hopes up and it's going to happen, and then just like that you're like back to square one. You're like, oh.
I'm so glad though that you shared that insight, because like even listening to you, I literally felt transported. I was there, and it's because as well, like I think you learn life lessons that perhaps in like other work environments aren't perhaps as like readily available. I'm not saying you can't learn these lessons anywhere else, but like it is tough. And when you describe it as well as heartbreak, it's that feeling of rejection. And
Oh yeah.
And like my boyfriend like has a performing arts background, right? And when we first met, he was still auditioning. So in my very naive world, right, I'm in awe, like absolute awe, and I'm getting hyped at the fact he's gone to an audition.
Yeah, Shane's like that. He's like, yeah, you got an audition? I'm like, yeah, with 500 other people.
And I'm literally like, I'm Shane, okay? So I'm so excited and I'm in awe and I'm like, oh my God, like if you need a self-tape, let me help you.
Yeah.
Honestly. And it's such a different world when you're not in it.
Yeah.
And I think that you're right that you can't understand or like even perhaps have insight into actually how difficult. And I remember clearly saying to him, and I was like, I don't know how you deal with the rejection. Like, because sometimes it's just that you just don't look like what they want and you can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, dye your hair, great. But if you're the wrong colour skin or the wrong height or the wrong accent, okay, slightly different actors can change it. But you get the gist of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that's hard. And I think that there's a certain type of resilience that I think perhaps you've developed to be able to go through that. Because that's the part I look on with so much love and admiration. And it's probably why I'm in awe of you guys, like within that field. It's tough.
Yeah, you could literally say anything to me and I'd be like, meh.
Okay.
Honestly, like you're too tall, too thin, too fat, too anything. Like you just be like, oh, whatever. You got to really, really like. I'm making it sound like it's easy. It's not. Some days, you know, especially as a girl, if you're hormonal as well, you're like, oh, what's wrong with me?
It's the end of the world.
You just want to like kill everybody. It's just like, when they ask, how's your audition? I don't want to talk about it. It would be so bad. But then another one comes through and you put your like pack your shoes and you go.
Honestly, I'm in awe. I think amazing because I just don't think I would have been able to go through that. And I think when you just said heartbreak, I was like, what a wicked analogy.
Yeah.
So knowing now, right, that your world and your life and your career looks completely different other than your dancing shoes, like at the end of last year for Chicago, what got you to the point where you were ready to pivot? Like, was it intentional or did it organically happen?
So a bit of both, really. When we bought the house, we were doing it up and I loved having a project and I'm creative. But again, I lost that creative side. Like when I was younger, I was like, loved drawing and makeup. And I'm an only child. Some people say lonely child. I'm like, only child. So like you spend a lot of time on your own. So you just like make things and like you keep yourself occupied. So I think I'm a creative person, but because everything was so like focused on dancing, everything else like went to the backburn. So when we bought the house, then was obsessed with like interior design and like doing it up and was like made an Instagram account. Like
I'm here for this, by the way.
It's called My House Flag. It's not on there anymore.
I was like, does it still exist? I'm gonna go check it out.
But like it was just, I loved it, and I sort of, you know, found this creative side and something else that I loved.
Nice.
And I forgot that I had that creative side. So we was doing up the house and then we found out that the show was closing. And then it closed and then COVID happened. But before that, I started working with a friend of mine who's an interior stylist, and I was just helping him out. Because, you know, we were trying to I was trying to work out what I wanted to do. It was at that weird point, but I was still being booked as a performer.
Okay.
On jobs and making money as a dancer. But I was like just searching and like sort of dipping into things to see what else I could do. Because you are like, what else can I do? You know, when you start looking at jobs, you're like, I haven't been to uni, so I can do ballet, but
oh, I love it.
Yeah,
it's like that dreaded phrase, like experienced people only. It's like, okay, I can learn.
What?
Yeah, like what do you want me?
Splits.
I'll take you. I'll hire you.
That's a good party trick. So yeah, and then COVID happened, and I thought I can't just sit here and wait for my agent was like, the theatres aren't going to open for another 6 months. Originally it was 6 months, and I was like, what, 6 months? So I thought, okay, what do I like? And with the interior styling, I realised I was assisting my friend who was amazing, but you spend a lot of time on your own. And I'm used to being around people all the time as a dancer. And that's what I didn't like. I felt like I wasn't being myself, and I felt like I was sort of a bit trapped. And I was like, I need to be around people. I love moving my body. I love physical things, and I always have loved fitness. So I was like, oh, train as PT. And my friends were doing it as well, like in lockdown. So I did an online PT course. Obviously in lockdown we had so much time. And was just like knuckled down. And then as I started doing the course and learning, I was like, what? I was like, why don't I know any of this? I've been a performer my whole life. Why do I not know this about food? Why do I not know this about, like, understand this about fat loss, weight gain, building muscle, strengthening? There was so much I didn't know, and I thought I knew. And then I was like, I'm going to help other people.
I love this though, right? Because I think it'd be a fair assumption to assume that as a dancer, you would know some of it. I'm not saying to the level of like somebody working in the fitness industry.
100%.
But the fact that you're moving your body for a living, you would think, right?
To know anything. I thought I knew.
But I think that's interesting as well though, because it's until something clicks, right? You only know what you know.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So it's about like that curiosity.
Yeah.
Before you kind of bring us into like current day world, and there's things that I just love that you do. I love your approach, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But just taking it back to that point where I'm going to call it your crossroads.
Yeah.
Maybe it's easy in hindsight as an observer to say that, but that point where you kind of testing out the water, right? Dabbling in the interior world, interior styling, going to kind of work with your friend and seeing what that's like. I just think, as much as it sounds like you kind of did that organically, and that, you know, that got sparked because you had the house and it was a project, and it was that sparking that creative flair. The thing that I think you did beautifully, and the reason I'm highlighting it, is because when I get that question as a coach, is in, Amira, I don't know what I want, or I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
And the one thing I say is, it's okay. You don't need to have it mapped out, but can you go and experiment? Can you just try and start with even like, what brings you joy? Like, and what brings you joy is not always going to be your job. So I'm not saying that the two have to marry, but I just love it because at the time you were super enthusiastic about the interior styling, but actually it sounds like that works really well as a project for you on a personal level. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Not, let's take that and make that a career. Yeah. But you tested it. Yeah. And you tried it.
Yeah. And you don't know until you try. And you don't know until, like, I was with my friend, I was making the beds in the like show homes. Like, struggled to make my own bed, and I was like, we're going to these penthouses, like, and I've been making the beds. It take me ages, and he'd come in, and I couldn't tell Steve come in and be like, oh, should we change it? I'd be like, oh. And steam them and stuff, but you know, that's what you have to do. You have to experiment and do things. And again, like, I have no ego in the sense that, like, I was like, well, yeah, you just got to do it. You just have to. And again, like, back to when in between dance jobs, I did every job in the world. Like, in the beginning, I've like random stuff. I was a shot girl. I was like, did promo work. I stood in a shower in King's Cross once. Like, my friend saw me. Like, I was like, this Nivea shower gel. And they were like, can you stand in this? We need someone to stand in a shower. It's gonna be like in the middle of King's Cross station with a shower hat and a nude bikini, so you look like you're naked, and just stand there for 20 minutes doing that. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And my friend saw me once, but anyway, I would just do anything. So I was like, that you just have to try stuff, and even if you like it, if you don't like it, okay, find something else. You know.
And I just think it's really important, because sometimes I think expect ourselves, we have this expectation that like we should know, or that you know, like, I hate the question as a 16-year-old, what do you want to do? I don't know, I haven't got a clue, right? And the thing that stands out, I guess, when you said it and talked about the interior designing, is you found your creative flair in other ways. And I think that I take it back to like, so as a 16-year-old, I was going to be a lawyer. It's what I studied. It's what I qualified in. My motivation behind it was I always wanted to help people. And if you look at both of us, you want to help people. So you do it. We both do it in really different ways, right?
Yeah.
My reason for doing it, which if you think about it, it all makes a lot of sense now, but we didn't know that until hindsight, okay?
Yeah.
And mine was to always advocate for kids going through care who didn't have a voice. Hence the reason why I do what I do now, right?
Yeah.
Everything I do is so people can express themselves and their authenticity, to learn how to assert themselves. What do I want to do in the future? I'll take it all the way back to schools. So, but you don't always know that. So just listening to you, I just think it's powerful. And I think it's lovely because you have this amazing like upbeat attitude where I think you just take on the world. And I look at it and I'm like, God, you made pivoting look so easy. And it's just, but I love it because you go for it.
Yeah.
And you try. And you're okay with like not knowing.
Yeah.
And that it wasn't about you having it figured out. And it also sounds, correct this if this is wrong, but it just sounds that, you know, when you got to the stage where you started qualifying with your PT course and the nutrition side of it, that it sparks the curiosity and you enjoyed the learning side.
Yeah. Oh my God, absolutely. Like and I suppose that goes with doing something that you like and something you're interested in.
Yes.
But yeah, it definitely made me think, oh my God, I want to learn more. I wanted to keep going and keep, and then it just happened. It was like, I then was like listening to podcasts and other people, other PTs, other trainers, like other people that I was inspired by. I was doing, you know, and it was still lockdown, so I was doing loads of classes online, like joining in with other people's fitness, you know, like just learning as much as you can. But I was really lucky in the way that lockdown gave me that time. So even though I haven't been doing it for that long in the scheme of like other people, you can really learn a lot if you put your mind to it.
I love that. I want to say as well, if anyone uses time as an excuse, not to say like it's a bad thing, but because you're grateful that you had that space and that time in lockdown, I hopefully, you know, like touch wood, we're not getting another lockdown. So knowing that we've gone through, I know, I'm like, do I even want to say that out loud? But let's just say, as far as we can know as humans, that that's not coming around again, thankfully. Then equally people might listen and say, God, I wish I did this in lockdown, or I wish I took that time, right?
Yeah.
But we all took that space for whatever we needed. We all transitioned through that really difficult time in whatever way we had to do it. And I think I just wanted to encourage people and say, just do something, right?
Yeah.
And so you immerse yourself in that world and you learn, and whether it's an online class or joining somebody else or listening to an expert in that field. So I think we can just forget sometimes those small things, how much they build up on a consistent basis.
Oh my God, absolutely, yeah.
So you are the creator of a fabulous program called Tone and Lean.
Yeah.
Can you tell us like the mission behind it? Because I love it and I literally live through your stories every day.
My annoying stories.
They are not, okay? They are motivational. I love your Monday client check-ins. I love seeing their progress.
I sometimes like people like, oh my God.
No, if you ever think that, please know that I am here supporting.
I got one fan. So basically, because I was in shock at how little I knew, coming from a dance background and secondly being a woman, I always thought that, you know, when I tried to lose weight in the past, I was like, okay, cut out carbs, you should be on this diet. I knew nothing about, I didn't have any education on food, and I just thought in my head, wow, this is amazing how little people know and how warped we are, and how much shit the media has taught us. So I wanted to put all of that knowledge into a program that helped women. It is a plan to lose body fat and tone up, because we use the word tone. Tone actually means build muscle.
Nice.
Whereas people think there's a difference between toning and building muscle. They think you're going to turn into like a bodybuilder. But I just wanted to create a program that was something that was realistic. Busy women could stick to, like myself. They can find the balance of life, still enjoy going out, having dinner with their friends. I love a drink, so like managing to work that in there as well, and just be the best version of yourself and get results and keep them.
And I think, you've touched on 5 points.
Yeah.
I want to
Anything else?
No, because they're all so important, so I want to pull them out, right?
Yeah.
I love that it came from a space where you were like, well, I didn't know this.
Yeah.
So actually, and let's take it back to media. I feel like I've had like a couple of media conversations lately around how negative our press can be, other conversations around that as well. And I think I was putting us in the same era, and I was like, yeah, no, we are the same generation. I was like, am I insulting you?
How old are you? Am I allowed to say that on here?
Yeah, you are. You know what? I never tell anybody my age. No, it's only because I like to think I'm 21. My birthday's next week. I'll be 34.
Oh, we're the same.
We're the same, yeah. Yes. Because then I was like, am I insulting you, putting you in my generation? I was like, no, we're the same.
No.
So I think taking it back to when we grew up, it's kind of a mix, actually. This is how I feel. And I want to ask, I guess, about what it was like for you growing up as a young female with mum.
Yeah.
Because when I think back to how I grew up, I wasn't aware of my body.
Right.
As in any negative or positive way.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a bad relationship with it.
Yeah.
And looking at my mum actually had a really healthy relationship with her body.
Yeah.
I never heard my mum talk badly about her body.
Yeah.
And I don't even know to this day, like she doesn't do it. She's just grateful for her body. I never heard her say, oh, this is wrong with it, or I need to lose weight, or... So I think that because of that, I was a tomboy and I had a brother, and we always used to play football together, and like there's only 2 years between us, so we did a lot together, right? And I was just very active as a kid, so I don't ever really remember it being a thing. And I always actually think back to when I was 16. I was, no surprise, right? You're overachiever, studying GCSEs. I'm going to get all A's. Anyway, that set me up so badly. But anyway, take it back to 16, and I stopped sport because I decided I really wanted to, nail my exams.
Yeah.
And I must have put on weight. But I remember as a 16-year-old, it just wasn't a big deal. Like, I remember not even being conscious about it. And I remember as soon as I finished my GCSEs, I used to like ride a bike, I used to go to the gym, I used to swim. And over summer holidays, I did that for like the 6 weeks or 2 months, whatever it was that I had off. But not because I thought I was chubby. If you ever see the pictures, I genuinely was. But it was just because I was conscious that I'd stopped sport. I'm going to finish my exams and I'm going to go back to sport. Yeah. And the first time I became aware of it is I remember... I don't know how bad this is to say out loud. But anyway, I used to do diving lessons in a pool, and the lifeguard had said to me, oh my God, you've lost so much weight. I'm sure that's so inappropriate on many levels, but that's the first time I became aware of my weight. So it's a very long question, a big old story there. But what I was going to say is, because one of your like intentions or missions behind your plan is to really help educate women, what was it like for you growing up?
So my mum's always had if I think back, my mum's always had a good figure. She always went to the gym. We've always eaten like healthy food, but actually that's a lie. I ate a lot of microwave meals growing up. Now I'm thinking about basically... I'm thinking about, we ate organic. No, we didn't. We ate Marks and Spencer's microwave meals for a good 6 years. Because my nan looked after me a lot as well. She's Italian, and she was the cook. Like, she was an amazing cook. So then my mum worked, and I'd go to my nan's after school, and she would do the cooking, and I'd eat amazing food. Didn't realise then how amazing it was. And then she'd give us we called it Meals on Wheels, that she'd give us things to take away at home. But because my mum was working, she didn't have time to do all of that. And she doesn't really like cooking either. So, it was very much, but it was never I never heard my mum, I don't have any memories of hearing my mum say anything bad about her, but she'd be like, oh, I need to go to the gym and get in shape, or, certain things. But it was never like, I don't ever remember my mum being on like a fad diet and always trying to lose weight. Whereas I have friends that have grown up struggling with their weight, who have their mums have also struggled with their weight and been on every diet, which I'm sometimes wondering, like, how much of an impact does that have on you growing up?
Yeah, and I think as well it's that element of like the behaviours being role modelled, what you absorb. And even if we take it back to like what you said right at the beginning in terms of you immersing yourself in the dance world, it's kind of like what you're immersed in.
Yeah.
What do you hear? What you're around all the time? What is your subconscious absorbing?
Yeah.
So I think it's really important. So going back to, I guess, like when you look at your clients and the people that go through the Tone and Lean plan, what, I guess, are some of the common things that you hear when they first start working with you?
So everyone, I would say the majority of women that come to me are women that are not feeling confident in their body, have either put weight on from whatever reason, stress, they've had children, their lifestyle's changed, and it's so sad, like when people come to me, like the things that they say about themselves, when they start, they have to take pictures, like we do progress photos, just because the scales can fluctuate, and it's good, even though people absolutely hate it in the beginning, it's good to see how far they've come and use it as, you know, something to move forward. But honestly, like some women, and I've just cried taking the photos and stuff. So it's horrible when, you know, you get into that place where you're like, oh my God, how can I get out of this? And I you know, I'm not saying anybody has to be a certain size at all, but to be confident and feel good in your skin, and feel good if you're on the beach, or feel good if you're naked in front of your partner, or feel, you know, why wouldn't you want that? I don't want to hide, or buy clothes that you like, not clothes that are just going to cover you up. Like, and that doesn't matter what size it is, but you need to feel good.
Yeah. When you said it makes me sad.
Yeah.
I hear it so much, because even one of my clients recently had said, oh, I'm just buying clothes, like whatever can cover me up.
Yeah.
And I love when you emphasize as well, it's not about the size, it's about what feels good for you. Like, where do you feel your best? Where do you feel most confident? And actually, it sounds like as well through the plan that you really educate as well as inspire, right? But give women the education and that information. I love when you said as well, to be able to sustain it.
Yeah.
So it becomes a lifestyle.
Because they've all done, like, loads of them have done, especially I've noticed, like women that are over 40 have done, like, they think carbs are the enemy. They've sort of scared to pick weights up. It's basically the opposite. They've been taught the opposite of all of the facts. So when I try and explain, no, you can eat carbs, or they're like, what about, can I eat after 8 o'clock? And I'm like, yeah,
definitely.
And they're like, what? But eating late is bad. I'm like, babe, your body's not going to go, it's 8 o'clock, we're just going to store that as fat now. You know, when you think about all these things, you're like, oh my God, I never thought about it like that. But they just sort of, it's really nice teaching them the facts. And then they still don't believe me in the beginning. And then when they start to see it, they're like, oh my God, it works. Like, it's science.
But it's so nice as well to hear when you say they don't believe me in the beginning, because it's such a mindset thing, right? And it's ingrained into your belief system.
Yeah.
And then when you see the results, it's like anything with your brain, it will register, oh, okay, this is okay if you're getting the result that you want.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Here's to empowering women.
Yes.
So one thing I am dying to like delve into with you. You talked about feeling good in front of your partner naked.
Yeah.
You have been in a long-term relationship with a lovely Shane.
Yeah.
11 years, am I right?
Yeah.
What makes an 11-year relationship work, please?
Well, Shane is the most chilled out person in the world, and I'm not. So I think that having somebody, well, I don't know, I was going to say having someone chilled, he will definitely pipe up when I'm annoying him. I don't know. I think that being your own person, as in knowing who you are, what you like doing, having your friends and your beliefs, having that for me is really important. And then him having that as well, like having his things is important. We are a team, absolutely, but it also, I need to feel like I have freedom as well. So I think just sort of, I don't know, communication, actually. That's probably the number one thing.
I did not pay you to say that.
Communication.
I was like,
it's communication. Yeah.
So I'm gonna divert a little bit here and
Yeah.
say, by the way, you said freedom's important to you. So I just
Yeah.
feel like add that maybe into your values, because that might factor into your values.
Yeah. Absolutely, it is 100%.
Right.
And I didn't realise that until I started my own business. Well, that's why I started my own business, actually, because I was like, I want to have freedom to be able to make this what I want and work on the hours that I want to work. I mean, sometimes when I'm working at midnight, it's not the hours I want to work, but
Yes.
I know that it's for me and I know why I have to do it, you know. Yeah.
I think that's really important, because I think freedom is one of the most common values I see come up.
Yeah.
Like within my community, clients, and it's one of mine, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny when you talk about realizing as you transitioned into your own business, it gives you that, right? But with my clients, I say force them. I'm so nice to my clients. I encourage them to say, okay, great. If freedom resonates with you, what is it about freedom? Because what freedom means to me is different what it means to you.
Yeah.
And for me, it means choice. So I'm same as you. Okay, cool. Did I sign up to work 7 days a week? No, but I'm still here for it.
Yeah.
But it's different because it's mine.
Yeah.
It's different because I get to do it in the way that I get to do it.
Yeah.
And also, I said this actually to a client the other day, because we must have been talking about something very specific around career. And I was like, yeah, I got to the point where I realised I was probably the shittest person to manage. Must have been a nightmare for every single boss. But it was the freedom to make decisions, to get it wrong, and for me to be able to lead.
Yeah. It's so different when you work for yourself and you have to make every decision. There's good things and bad things.
Yeah.
But I do think that the good outweighs the bad, because when it's tough and when it's super busy and when you're, you know, trying to make decisions and thinking, is this good or is this shit? Like, what have I just made? But when you do it and you then see the benefits, you're so proud of it, and I don't know, you have a product that it's different. You're more passionate when it's your own. Do you agree?
Yeah, for sure. Because I was really thinking when you asked me that question, because I used to work like a standard 60, 70 hour week. That was like my normal week in corporate, right? And I honestly thought in like me doing that, I couldn't possibly work any harder. Like, work ethic is my biggest strength and my biggest flaw. And I was like, I can't work any harder than this. And what I realised is I work harder now, just not based on hours. It's different.
Yeah.
And that, it's an incredible feeling, I think, when you start to really look backwards and be like, damn, like I did that.
Yeah.
And when you talk about the decisions and making decisions, in the beginning, I mean, I was probably crippled with indecision, because it was like, oh, it's got to be right. But it's the complete reverse as a business owner. It's like, no, it needs to be wrong, because the quicker you get it wrong, the quicker you learn how to do it differently or what's going to work best. And I was like, oh yeah. And in the beginning, I think I used to seek a lot of answers. For my brother's like my business mentor, right? So I bounce off and things like that. And there's been a really nice transition to not like require that in the same way.
Yeah.
And just be like, actually, no one else is going to run this except me. So trust your instinct and allow yourself to get it wrong.
Yeah.
Does that sound fair?
Yeah, 100%. And the more, you know, you're not always, it's really difficult, because I'd say that I'm a bit of I really like to do things well and like want things to be good. I mean, everyone does, but I'm just like, I have this fear of like, I don't want people, because it's mine as well and it's your reputation. So if anyone says something like bad, or well, not, I think one person the whole time that said something bad, but like that really threw me, because it was like, oh my God, I'm not doing a good job. Like, whereas you care so much when it's your own thing. What was the question? I can't remember.
Don't you worry, I'm going to full circle. On that note though, I was going to say, as my community, and I think so many people listening are going to resonate with you, is I have a community of high achievers. I always say, I call us all overachievers, right? Yeah. And it's sometimes, my client said to me this week, and I just smiled at her so much, and she said, I was so used to getting things right, to being that straight A student, to thriving all the time, that like to have any mistake or any slight bit of feedback that I register as criticism is like a soul crushing moment. And it's playing out in loads of different ways in like different areas of her life at the moment. So listening to you, I just feel that it's that border, right, of like, and I challenged one of my other clients on this. I was like, you can have expectations, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying let's get rid of them. But is it a high expectation or is it an unrealistic one?
Yeah.
Right? Because yes, your brand, your credibility is so important. Your relationship building, especially when it's you and your name, right?
Yeah.
But then where is the permission to get it wrong?
Yeah.
Right? And I think as high achievers, I think I'm going to say cripples us. That sounds so bad, but it's something I think that's useful for us to be mindful of.
Yeah, it can make the process quite like miserable. You can like, instead of enjoying it, you can be your own, you can have a bad day instead of it being okay. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like I would dread on a Monday as my check-in days. And sometimes I wake up with so much anxiety and it's ridiculous because I'm there just to message people. But I think what happens is if they're not getting the results that they've signed up for, and the thing is like, that's sometimes not on me. I can tell people to do things, and if they don't do it or something's come up, or you know, not every week is going to be perfect. But when someone isn't getting the results and they're stressed, then that definitely, I get this like fear that I'm failing.
Yes.
But then I have to be like, no, Chelsea, because then you read the other people that are doing well, you know, so it's not, you can only do what you can do. And then I think the more risks you take and the more you get used to you know, trying out new things and it might not be that great, the easier it gets. Does that make sense?
So much sense.
I've put that in a weird way, but
no, I think that really makes sense. And when you even talk about the Sunday to the Monday and that the feelings of anxiousness coming up, and then you essentially, and this is what my client said this week, right? Attaching your worth to their results, right?
Yeah.
Because if they do good, it means you're good enough coach, right?
Yeah.
Or you're experienced enough in what you do, or you're knowledgeable enough, right?
Yeah.
And it's actually the detachment, and I resonate with that so much. And I feel like that first year of me doing it under my own brand, and the different thing for me was that I coached when I worked in corporate, right? Not solely at all. My role was very much like design, deliver, facilitate group and one-to-one. So it was really varied and it wasn't something I did all day, every day, but I had enough experience. So going self-employed, I wasn't new at being a coach.
Yeah.
But it was so different when I was like, if they're not doing well, it's because of you.
Yeah.
And being able to detach. So just really listening to you, I think I honestly think so many people right now are going to listen to this and really feel so heard and seen, because I think as well as any coach or anybody that's working in an industry where you're helping or supporting other people or anything, even if it's not and it's about your output, is actually that someone else has to meet you at the table with the exact same amount that you bring.
Yeah.
And whether it's a romantic relationship or a work partnership or a client relationship, that it's not about 50-50. I really hate when we come at it from that point, is you're bringing 100, they bring 100.
Yeah.
And without each other, you can't co-create.
Yeah.
I always,
so true.
Yeah. So when you just said about those feelings and actually being able to detach and say, hey, I'm here and I'm showing up for you and I'm going to keep you accountable and I'm going to educate you and I'm going to inspire you. But equally, this is what I require from you.
Yeah.
And then allowing the flex when you said, not every week is going to be a good week.
Life happens, and that's what I always say. I'm never going to be, I understand. And as well, a lot of my clients are busy women or women that have children, and then you're looking after other people. Like it's not just about you. It's if their kids are sick, they can't wake up and train. It's not as easy. Even if I say just train 3 times a week, they can't sometimes because their kids are sick. Like you definitely, like as women, there's definitely a lot of sacrifices. Your hormones are a huge thing that impact people's journeys, like especially with fat loss, you know, and there's so many factors. But the plan is to understand that there's always going to be fluctuations. Not every week is going to be perfect, but it's like I call them like a sailing week, where you're like just sailing and getting there slowly. But then you get there, you know, and it's just that it's not a quick thing.
Can I just say I'm really going to take that analogy away with me?
Yeah.
Because it actually as well was like really calming as you described it.
Yeah.
And that we can sail, but I think as high achievers, you're so used to achieving and doing. And I think definitely for me on a personal journey over the last couple of years, it's been focusing on like being. And I am not saying that I'm there and I'm not about to lie to everybody, but it's a constant work in progress. When you just described, it's a sailing week. Like you're still going to get there. But this week we cruise a little bit and we do what we can. And then it comes back to like that compassionate voice in your head as well, right? And giving yourself that grace to say, okay, I don't have to constantly be doing.
And I listen to I love Mel Robbins as well. And she always is like, if you're having a bad, if something's not going to plan, first of all, forgive yourself. So I'm really I try and do that now. I'm like, okay, it's all right. And then,
But that's like incredibly important. And sometimes I think, because I say to my clients, I encourage them to have like an internal dialogue, right, with either the critical part, whatever part of their brain or their ego is showing up, really different in different situations. So when like Mel Robbins is saying it, it's like, because it's easy when you say the phrase, oh, be kind in the same way that you would to your friend, right? And sometimes I think we have overused phrases that our brains just don't register anymore. But actually, until you learn how to show yourself like compassion and like you said, forgive yourself. And it's not a tomorrow thing. It's not like you wake up tomorrow and be like, oh, okay, cool, I'm not going to be as harsh on myself. But just starting to be mindful of like, how critical are you being? Like, how mean are you being on yourself? Whether it's like, as a business owner, or whether it's one of your clients being like, oh, well, I didn't work out 3 times this week, but I only managed once. Well, great, you managed one. Amazing. Right. And I think that perhaps we don't talk enough about being compassionate to ourselves and actually how to do it. And when you said, you're like, I'm remembering it and saying forgive myself, but it is actually about talking to yourself to say, okay, wait, why am I being mean here? Okay, where's that pressure coming from? Okay, can we find a different way of doing this? And how actually powerful it is. Amen, Mel Robbins.
She really resonates with me because it's quite to the point.
And direct.
I like direct.
I love that. So I was going to say, bringing it back to Shane, because
he's been put on the back burner again.
We got rid of him. We just got Shane. No, we're not. Okay. But listening to you as well, because this is how we got onto this, right? Because we were talking about values and you were like, actually freedom is really important to me. I was like, we're going to full circle, don't worry. But the other thing as well, so I love that you really said it's about you guys staying individuals and also being a team and being able to have both, right? I adore that. And you being able to honor your value of freedom. I'm like, yes. And then also play into that teamwork. But over 11 years, I'm going to take a guess that you both have evolved and grown and changed as individuals. How did you also like grow together?
Well, when we met, we actually met. So we met on a cruise ship, and I was dancing on it. It was my first job leaving like dance college, and he was working as a diver, like a safety diver in another
I have to literally close my mouth. I'm like, this is such a good story.
And we met and we got along really, really well. And then he was like, oh, I'm thinking, I do his accent because he hates. He was like, babe, I'm thinking about moving to London. I was like, oh yeah, what are you gonna do? And
okay, wait, like, where's he from?
Canada. Oh, and he's like, there's a water tank, and I'm maybe gonna work in film. And I was like, okay. And I remember being in his like tiny little cabin, and he showed me like Pinewood. They have like a water stage there, and he showed me, and I was like, that's in Watford, that's near my house. And then he sent an email, and Shane is like, has this, I don't know, I call him jammy. I'm like, you're so jammy, because he just like, things just happen.
Yes.
Like he wins competitions, he's just jammy. And things just happen. Like when he's not like, he puts it out there, but doesn't get stressed about anything.
There's like an ease and flow when he does it.
To him. And anyway, then he got a job at Pinewood, and I remember saying to my mum, because I was like, I've got a boyfriend, and she was like, oh yeah, have we seen the pictures? Because they were all seeing the pictures on Facebook, and they were like, oh, he's going to move to London. And she went, what the fuck is a diver going to do in London? And I was like, I don't know. So we like got this little studio flat together and moved in together, which the studio seemed like literally like a mansion, because we'd been on the ship
in the tiny cabin. I'm like, I've watched Below Deck, okay? So that's what I've got in my head.
It was tiny. So anyway, I then started auditioning, and it was like a big deal for me because it was coming back, you know, onto the audition scene. I wanted to work in London. He was then started working in film. And then there were definitely times where I was like, whew, in the beginning, like, this is a lot. He was trying to navigate his life. Like, we're trying to do it as a team as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it just worked. And then he then decided he wanted to be a stuntman. Yeah. And he started training for the stunt register, whereas you have to do a certain amount of skills to get on the stunt register. And then we were both like we were kind of doing the same thing without knowing. You know what I mean? Like following our passion, our like, there was no sort of pressure on having to do it, or the other person having to do it. We were both doing the same thing in a way.
Yeah.
But then I just think that we just both did it. I don't know. It's weird when you think back. Like, I'm so like proud of, like, you know, what he's achieved. Why am I getting emotional?
I love this.
Because he's like, he works really, really hard, but he's just just a good person. So seeing things like happen to, you know, good people, it's nice. Oh my God.
I'm a crier. Okay. So once you start, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm done. We are here for his appreciation, right? And I think it's so important to be able to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Right? And 11 years is a huge part of your life.
Yeah.
And the fact that it works
Yeah.
is so incredibly beautiful.
Yeah. And I think, like, you know, in the beginning we were living in that little studio flat, and we didn't know what was gonna happen. We both had dreams of, like, I wanted to be a dancer, he wanted to be a stuntman, and then we did it. So it's nice. And I think that you have to have that support. Like, whenever I would, like, got a job, I went away on tour, and that, he was fine with it. You know, some guys might be like, you're leaving for a year, like, you know, but we made it work. He came to see me, and it just works. You have to just communicate and trust each other, I suppose.
It sounds like, as well, when you talk about both of you following your dreams and perhaps, like, not realizing it at the time, because sometimes with life there's that thing of, like, you get on with it, or there's something in front of you, and as humans we are pretty resilient, so you sometimes do without realizing what you're doing at the time, or without, you know, you analyzing it. But it also feels like by both of you doing that, it was also, like, honoring you both as individuals. But also the other thing that I do think is incredible is the support. Because sometimes I think it can get outweighed when you're both following your dreams, and how you both equally, like, support each other. I'm not saying it needs to be 50-50 when I say equally, but allowing it to sway. And you're right that the trust sounds that it's an incredible part of your relationship. And you're right that somebody, whether it's the female or the male, or a female relationship, regardless, one person going away for X amount of time, whether it was a tour or something else, wouldn't work for everybody.
Oh God, it wouldn't have happened with my ex. Like, you know, we were, like, when I got the job, I was with my ex when I got the cruise ship, and he was like, if you take this, oh God, he won't be listening to this, but like, he was like, if you take this, we're gonna break up. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And he was like, okay, we'll stay together. But I was like, I'm not gonna not take it for a guy. Like, that was, you know, that's a dream. Like, I wasn't. And a good partner wouldn't threaten you with something because they have a fear of losing you.
You hit the nail on the head. You literally took the next sentence out of my mouth, because I was going to say ultimatums, in my opinion, aren't healthy ways to communicate, right? Because, and when you acknowledge it's from his place of fear, and actually it's okay to feel fear. I'm not saying that we need to all get rid of it. And as humans, whether you're in a relationship, you find it difficult to trust, like, those things are going to come up. But then it's about, and this comes down to your emotional, like, awareness of, all right, I'm feeling the fear. Why am I feeling this? All right, how do I then share that and communicate it? So I think you're so right when you're like, cool, I'm going to take it.
But it's funny because when me and Shane first got together, like, my previous relationships had been, like, quite turbulent and we'd fight and argue a lot. And I thought, and I'm like, growing up, my parents, like my mum and my dad, was my stepdad, my dad, they would fight a lot and they weren't great at communicating. And I sort of grew up thinking that that's how you communicated. So like when we would start, you know, when me and Shane would argue or disagree on stuff, I would like naturally just turn into this monster and shout and call him names. And he would be like, oh, so is that what we're going to do now? We're going to call each other names? And I mean, like, but then I was like, actually, that's not very nice. But that's what I grew up thinking, or like, that I thought that's how you did communicate, or that's how you did get through things, but it's not, and we're completely different now. Because don't get me wrong, sometimes I do see red and I think, oh, I know I have to leave the situation and just breathe and like you know, you learn, but yeah, you definitely can adapt and become like, I don't know, do you feel like you have become more like as one? Like,
yeah, I think when you say as one, I'd say that I feel that we have opposite strengths.
Yeah.
So I feel he schools me.
Yeah.
In
that's
like
exactly the same.
And I feel like I'm constantly learning.
Yeah.
And I love when you said, when Shane, I'm not even going to attempt the accent because mine would be
hates
terrible.
it anyway. He's like, why do you make me sound so stupid?
I can't wait for him to hear this. But what I was going to say is that when he said at that point, so is this what we're going to do then?
Yeah.
And it's also about, and it depends, right, on where your partner's at and their background. And this is what, I'm not going to say makes relationships hard, but this is why these types of conversations are so important. Because he as well, it sounds like, by the way, because I don't know this, that he grew up in a different environment. So at that point, while you're seeing red and fighting and have blown up, he's able to kind of ground you, like previous version of you, right, to that extent.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the most helpful things.
Yeah.
So I know, for example, when you say like, do you become one? I feel that very similar. Mine was to react.
Yeah.
And I've had to work really hard. And the thing is, the trigger for me is never about him, ever.
Yeah.
Ever. And I'm literally like your most incredible human
Yeah.
I've ever met in my whole entire life. Yeah. And I was like, I have to stop, otherwise I'll get emotional. But he approaches the way he communicates with so much thought and care.
Yeah.
And because I operate really quickly, I'm like, it gives me like a deep sense of appreciation.
Yeah.
So when you talk about Shane, and I'm like, yeah. But also you taking it back to mum and dad.
Yeah.
I literally get my clients to do this from the beginning, right? But from the absolute get-go, regardless of what we're going to work on within their communication, like skill set, I call it toolbox, right? It's like, okay, cool. We're going to map out your story. And we're going to look at your blueprint.
Yeah.
Because it's that, right? It's what you saw, what you took on, what you saw role modeled, aware or not of it.
Yeah.
It went into your subconscious.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing with you guys is you got to the point where you're like, oh, okay, we need to shift and do something differently here. And I'm going to say after 11 years, it clearly sounds like, yeah, you guys have found a beautiful way of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like taught me a lot. I'm trying to think what I would have taught him. I'm like, has he learned probably learned a few bad jokes on me.
Oh my God. Like, you're not allowed to put yourself down ever on this podcast, like ever, okay? So I was going to say probably your drive and your ambition and like, I call it your vivaciousness for life, because that's how I would describe you.
Yeah.
And I think you have incredible qualities that, yes, you taught him.
Oh.
So if he's like more of the, when you describe it like calm one, then you also remember you probably lift him up a lot.
Yeah.
And you just do it in different ways for each other.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I never thought about it like that.
Before we go into kind of like the last section of the podcast where I ask every guest 3 questions.
Yeah.
For you and Shane, given you've been together for a considerable amount of time and you guys have worked on the way that you guys interact with each other, is there anything at the moment, at a stage you're both at, that you feel when it comes down to the way you communicate or anything in your relationship that you're mindful of or you still want to work on?
Yeah, I think we're both quite laid back in a sense of we're both very driven and we have plans like for our future, and we talk about the future a lot, about, you know, having a family, and like where we want to live and stuff. But because we are so driven and want to do well with our jobs and want to go on holidays and travel and do so many things, it's like, okay, at what point are we now gonna like knuckle down and do it? You know, I think that we're not very good at planning ahead because we've both always been freelancers. So because he never knows what's coming up for him with work, like we don't even plan sometimes. Like we're probably the worst friends in the world, like because everyone has that. Are you free in a couple of weeks? We're like, yes, but we're not the people that say, you know, are you? But I've got better at that because that was something I wanted to work on, because I was like, I hate that. I'm not the person, you know, asking my friends if they want to go out. I am a yes person. So if someone's like, do you want to go on a holiday? Well, it's a running joke. I'm like, yeah, I'll come. But like, I'm not the person to plan like a month in advance or 2 months in advance, because my brain can't think that far ahead. So I wish that I really would like us to be a bit more organised in the sense of planning, even our weekends. Like he's got the weekend off. We haven't, you know, we'll just wake up. So things like that. And then I do think we have to get a shimmy on in terms of like having a family. Like, again, that scares the shit out of me. So, and then yesterday I was like saying about, oh, Nick, we want to move into a different area. And I was like, the thing is, it needs to be somewhere cool, because like I want to be with like cool mums. And honestly, the look of fear in his face, he was like, what? Like, and I was like, well, not now, but you know, things like that have started popping up in my head because my friends are having kids, and you know, at 34, like that's the thing. My mum is desperate to be a grandma, and Greg is desperate to be a granddad, but they know not to ask anymore.
That's a good they learnt about.
Yeah, so like I think that definitely planning for us and actually making it happen, probably, because otherwise I worry that we're just gonna then stay like that. I don't know how to navigate that really. I've written down my like goals. I always write down my goals and things that I want to happen like in the future and stuff. But I'm now it's like, oh, how do I make that happen? Because I suppose there's fear behind it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And also it sounds like the thing that you do so effortlessly is when it comes to work and career and business. So it's like, what works for you well in that area, and how can you perhaps borrow some of those things and start to transfer them over when it comes to like you and Shane and what you both want next.
Yeah. But then I just sometimes think with that, I'm like, I feel like it will just happen, but I don't, like, it's not a problem right now. It will just happen slowly, but you do have to like, you know, initiate certain things.
Do you know what? I really, really resonate with what you said in terms of, yes, I bang on so much about if it's meant for you, it's not going to pass you by.
Yeah.
And it's the balance of like having space for that, allowing yourself to trust.
Yeah.
But equally, you want an intention behind it.
Yeah.
But all I'd say is perhaps for you both to get clear with each other on the intention.
Yeah.
And not necessarily having to make it some big goal and like, oh my gosh, okay, this has got to be the, you know, the next 12 steps of what we do. But actually, what's our intention?
Yeah.
Okay, how can we start to move towards the intention? What feels good about the intention?
Yeah.
And equally keep going with the ethos of, okay, we also trust that what's meant for us isn't going to pass us by.
Yeah.
But actually, we're working on that feeling behind why we want it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So before we wrap up, we've gone everywhere with this episode in the most beautiful way. I didn't even want to round it up. I was like, I could just keep going.
We'll just have a chat. Let's go back to Soho House.
Take me there. It's my favourite spot. Okay, so I ask every guest 3 questions, and it can be anything you said in the episode. It can be something brand new, whatever kind of comes to you.
Yeah.
So first question, what is a quote that you might want to share with our wonderful listeners, or even I say like some food for thought, which just lets people kind of marinate on something?
So I would say the best quote, then fight the fear and do it anyway. I love that one. I know it's like beige, like basic, but I'm just like, don't be scared of something not happening, or don't be scared of someone saying no or not responding. Just send that email. If you don't ask, you don't get. So like, even if you feel uncomfortable by it, just do it, just try it, and you never know what's going to happen. Because every single thing that I've got since like transitioning into fitness, I've thought, oh, I've met this person, like, you know, now I work at Equinox. The reason I work there is because I met Waz. Do you know Waz?
Yeah.
Like on a film, like years back, on a movie, and I was like, oh, he works there, I really want to work there. Sent him a message. You know, you just never know like what something's gonna, if you send an email, you never know what's gonna come of it. Someone might not reply, but it's fine.
So you know when you describe that quote as bait, usually this is not where I start a new conversation. I am just going to add in here that's how I'd also sum you up, because that story, for me also, like this, I'm not trying to put you into one box, but sums up such an amazing quality that I think you have, that I love. And you also serve to me as a reminder when you're like, so what if somebody says no? What is the position you're starting from? Well, you don't have it now anyway. So what are you losing? Nothing.
No, nothing.
Right?
Yeah.
And I love it when you say, so let's not say it's beige, right? Because I love that. And I think it sums up so much of what you are actually incredible at doing.
Yeah, you have to. I think that you just, when I was younger, I used to enter competitions all the time. Like, I was like obsessed with competitions. So I think I still have that in me where I'm like, I'll just send a thing and like see if I get a reply.
Oh, so it's like a game show.
Yeah, she's a gambler.
This is my new thing. We're actually applying for a couple game shows, so you never know. Stay posted.
I love it.
Okay, second question. What's a practical tip that you either use that's useful for you that people could walk away and try themselves?
So I bought have you heard of a Fox planner?
No,
I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that. My friend told me to get one. It's basically like, because I was like getting really stressed, I had too many things going on in my mind. Like it's basically like a diary, but at the beginning you can write down your goals, what you want to achieve, like in terms of like business, relationships, or things like that, which is good to get, you know, clear-headed. And then you basically each day you have the things, your to-do list, but you prioritize 3 things, and it's like 3 things that have to be done that day. And for me, that's super important, because as an overachiever, you set an unrealistic amount of things to get done. So if I just go 1, 2, 3, they're the things that have to be done, and then tick it off, and then the other things can happen after. And then you can do your and then at the end of the week, you analyze what you've done. Just like things that I've achieved. So then also you feel good. You're like, oh, wow, I did do that. You know,
I cannot stress this enough. Yes. Non-negotiables, reflections at the end of the week, and also acknowledge your goddamn wins. Please, people, please. Yeah.
And in categories as well, not just work, because if you're somebody that's quite work focused like me, you don't forget about family sometimes. My mum's like, hello.
And just let you know, you've made me feel so much better today. Sometimes I feel like, oh my God, am I such a bad human being?
Yeah. It's just when work gets busy, and that's bad, because it's just, and I don't want to be that person, but having that reminder there is like, okay. Yeah.
And last question.
Yeah.
What's a resource that you want to share that's helped you, whether it's a book, a show, a podcast?
So I just think podcasts in general are just so inspiring, and the days where I feel flat and like I'm not achieving anything, I'll always put a podcast on. So like I find your socials really inspiring. I find I love Mel Robbins. She's very to the point and like calls you out on stuff where you're like, oh my God, I do that. Like, you know, this building a routine, Diary of a CEO. I love, you know, the people that I love hearing people's stories and how they got there. But I just think being inspired by people, you have to always do that, and then that will help big time.
I love that.
Yeah.
I want to say the biggest thank you for today.
Thank you.
For trusting me, for being open. It has been absolutely incredible. And I hope the way you go and listen to everybody else's podcast, someone switched this on today and they've taken exactly what they needed from it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. Oh, thank you. I've loved it. I'm like, so weird. Even after this, it's like you get imposter syndrome. I'm like, was that boring? Like, that's so weird, isn't it? That you come away thinking that.
Not weird at all. I'm just going to change the dialogue.
Tell me I wasn't boring, guys. They was the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.